All right, folks, welcome back to Game Time. We got episode 2 rolling for you here. I'm John Eads. We appreciate you tuning in. Episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. Be sure to download our 9 News app. Find us on YouTube. Just search WAFB. And follow my social media pages on the X app, what used to be Twitter. I'm at John Eads WAFB. On Instagram, I'm John Eads TV. And then if you go on Facebook, just look up John Eads. We apologize for some of the sound quality issues in that last episode. We're still just kind of figuring out some of the equipment and things of that nature, but there shouldn't be any more of those problems moving forward. We got another very exciting episode for you today. 4 more topics, 3 more LSU topics, and we'll round things out with Saints because they had a big update that actually just came out earlier today that we got to talk about and how that will impact this team this season. But let's get into our first topic for the day. All right, so the AFCA coaches poll was released yesterday, and LSU came in at the 5th spot, which is pretty good, pretty hefty ranking for the Tigers there, and the coaches think highly of the team. For LSU, it's the highest ranking they've had preseason since 2020, coming off that national championship season. Funny enough, the Tigers were ranked number 5 that year. But here's something that's interesting that I want to dive into is the contrasting histories of LSU having this preseason hype. Before the 2020 season, the highest LSU was ranked was number 2, way back in 2007. And you guys know what happened in that season. LSU went on to win the national championship that year, and the only 2 losses they had were in triple overtime, both of them. So that was a great season. That's a season where LSU lived up to those expectations. But 2020, not so good. LSU, as I said, came into the season ranked number 5. They finished 5-5, albeit a season where your quarterback went down with injury, Miles Brennan, after a handful of games, and obviously that's going to, hurt your season when you lose your starting quarterback, because unless you got a really potent backup like LSU does kind of have this year, you're really going to struggle, and they did struggle that year. Ended the season well, but still 5-5, not what you'd expect from a team that's ranked number 5 coming into this season. That's a team that should be competing and almost make the college football playoff. So we'll see if LSU goes down more of the 2007 path or the 2020 path this year. A lot of hype, though, and the coaches poll has LSU at number 5. So what the coaches poll also told us is that this schedule is more manageable than people may think. In the top 25, only 4 teams on LSU's schedule were in that coaches poll. Now, a couple months ago, you may think there'd be more, maybe 5, maybe 6 of the teams be in the top 25 for the coaches poll, but not the case. Only 4 this year, and those teams are FSU, who LSU will play in the season opener. They checked in at number 8. You've also got Georgia, who was in there at number 1, and Alabama, who was in there at number 3. Now, that's something I really want to dive into real quick here, is the fact that Bama is ahead of LSU and at number 3. For me, I think Alabama's ranked way too high. Now, if you're watching this when it's being filmed here in August, and you're going to come back and watch it in November, December, when the game happens over in Tuscaloosa between LSU and Alabama, and circle back to this clip, maybe it'll backfire for me. I don't seem to think so, though. When I think about Alabama, this offseason, all you've really thought about is the fact that they don't have a quarterback coming back. They got to replace Bryce Young. They've got 3 different options for quarterback: Ty Simpson, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Buckner. Neither of those 3 are proven. Neither of those 3 have played much of any college football at a real level, in my opinion. Buckner's always hurt. Milroe played a couple of games in relief last year, but wasn't impressive. He's basically just a running back playing quarterback. And Simpson was a big-time recruit, like Alabama always gets, especially the quarterback, but he hasn't played much. So why are you putting Alabama at number 3, knowing all of that? New coordinators, new OC, new DC. Defensive side, you're replacing Will Anderson. Sure, you've got a little bit of talent here and there, but Pete Golding's gone. The DC, he's at Ole Miss now. And you're replacing guys like Anderson. Just so many holes to fill. I think the coaches are just picking Alabama based on the brand name. And if the media were to release a poll right now, they probably would do the same thing. But don't overthink it. LSU's got the quarterback back. They've got the most returning talent in the SEC. I don't understand why the Tigers are ranked number 5. It's funny, I was talking to Jacques Doucet, another guy in our sports department yesterday, about this coaches poll. And I was like, hey, LSU number 5, what's up with that? He was like, what do you mean? That's really high ranking. I was like, yeah, it is, but LSU should be higher than that. there's no reason why Bama should be number 3 for the reasons I just outlined. So I had a little bit of a problem with that. Georgia at 1, I don't really have a problem with. They got to replace their quarterback. Michigan's at 2, so if you want to just do the whole quarterback thing, you'd put Michigan above Georgia. But I mean, 2-time back-to-back defending national champions, you really can't doubt them whatsoever. A couple other things on the coaches poll. Tulane cracked the top 25 at number 23 after a great season last year where they beat USC in that bowl game and really surprised a lot of folks. The turnaround they had was unbelievable. So another Louisiana team getting to the top 25 there. So shout out to Tulane. And a couple of the other SEC teams that made the top 25 as well. Tennessee checked in at 10. They're an interesting team this year. They're going to pop. They're going to, not live up to those expectations. That'll be interesting to see. Ole Miss creeps in there at 22. Another team that LSU will play this fall. That's the 4th and final of the top 25 teams that we mentioned that LSU will play this season. And then Texas A&M just slides in there at number 25. So a couple of SEC teams. I think 6 is the final tally. Only 4, though, on LSU's schedule for this fall. And the Tigers, of course, ranked number 5, their highest ranking in the preseason coaches poll since 2020. Okay, moving on. Let's talk LSU football a little bit further. And I want to dive into something that's pretty interesting because when you think about LSU as a team this year, it's consistent. There's 14 returning starters for this team, but there's a couple of those guys that need to fill into those voids that need to step up and do so big time for the Tigers this season. I want to call these guys that are stepping up, that need to step up, the wild card players. When you think of a wild card, you don't really know what to expect. But the wild card can be one of the best cards in games like Uno, Phase 10, games like that, right? So these wild card players are players that if they pop, if they have a great season, they can completely change the scope of what this team can do this year, what this LSU football squad can accomplish this fall. So we're going to start with a couple receivers. Brian Thomas, Kyron Lacey. 2 guys that have been more auxiliary type receivers so far for LSU, both hovering around 300 yards receiving last year, combining for just over 600. But you've really got Malik Neighbors, and that's about it. Who's wide receiver 2? Who's wide receiver 3? You don't know. LSU didn't really have either of those options on last year's team. It was Neighbors, and that was pretty much it. It was supposed to be Kayshon Boutte, but he was up and down, he was here, he was there, he was all over the place last season. Anything but consistent. You need that number 2, that number 3 guy that can come into a football game and make plays. You can't rely on one person because defenses like Alabama, defenses like Georgia, if you face them in the postseason, they're going to find a way to shut down one player. Football's played with 11 guys on both sides of the ball. In the passing game, there's 4, sometimes 5 different guys that are running routes. So you need the second and third options to be viable. And I expect one of those 2, if not both of those roles, to be filled by Brian Thomas, Kyron Lacey. Both big-time recruits, both guys that have some length. Thomas 6'4", Lacey 6'2", plus 200 pounds. They need to be that vertical threat. I feel like what this LSU offense lacks right now is that vertical, deep, downfield passing threat. That guy that can catch a jump ball, can burn a defender on a post route, on a go route, can just make a play in the boundary. And I think that Thomas and Lacey could do that. Lacey flashed it in the spring game. Remember that one-handed snag he had? I mean, that was awesome. This offense needs playmakers and dudes that can make plays like that consistently. So, Brian Thomas, Kyron Lacey, your first 2 wildcard players. Now let's flip to the defensive side of the ball. Savion Jones is next. D-end, coming up to his junior season, 6'6", 268, sliding into a starting role. He's projected to start on that D-line opposite Ovie Oghoufo, who we've already talked about a little bit, the Texas transfer. Now, Jones played in 11 games in his true freshman season, had 3 tackles, saw a little bit of an uptick in playing time last year, even started 3 games, 23 tackles, 4.5 sacks. So pretty good production, but can he take it to the next level? That's what I'm wondering this year about Savion Jones, because last year you had B.J. Ojulari on the one side. You didn't really have that consistent pass rush on the other side of the defensive line. Ali Gay was in there a little bit. The linebackers would help out. Harold Perkins was in there, and other guys would kind of creep down into the box and blitz off the edge. But if you've got 2 defensive ends that can consistently get pressure, you've really got something. And you don't need to force your linebackers, your safeties to come up, make plays and blitz. They get sit back in coverage. You can really disguise and do a whole lot of different things with your defense, with your scheme. So I want to see if Jones can become a consistent pass rusher, a consistent problem creator on this D-line to complement what Mekhi Wingo does, what Agufu does, and what Mason Smith does. And that's a great segue into our next wild card player. It is Mason Smith. If you were to tell me that he'd be a wild card player a couple years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. Remember, this guy was a 5-star. Every college program wanted him. But his college career, for different reasons, just hasn't panned out the way that most of us probably expected it to. He played a couple of games in his freshman season. He was very promising his freshman season. 4 starts, 19 tackles, got on the field, and played some big-time ball. Last year, the hype train was cruising. 100 miles an hour. You get to that season opener. Everybody's expecting big things from Smith. And he goes down early in the game with an injury when he was celebrating a play. Now, you can't blame him for that at all. Guy's just celebrating. I mean, how many of us have jumped up in the air in joy or sometimes in sadness and, landed and not injured ourselves? I mean, it just doesn't happen. When you jump up in the air, you just celebrate. You're in the moment. He did not expect to get injured. And it was too bad because I'm sure if you asked him, hey, do you regret that decision? He'd probably say yes. But anyways, he rehabbed, he's recovered, he's back, he's been practicing, and he's back. Mason Smith, again, big-time elite recruit, big dude. He's 6'6", 310. He's going to stuff the runs, and he's a guy that's going to get interior pressure. He can change this defense. He can shut down opposing offenses. Can he come back from that injury, though, and play at the level that he was in high school, that had him be a 5-star recruit, and that had everybody so excited about him 2 years ago? That's the question for Mason Smith. He's a wild card. Round out with this. Free safety, Major Burns. 6'2", 190. And the hype is real for him, too. At least we think. By the media's accounts, this guy was a third-team All-SEC pick for the preseason teams at media days. That's despite only starting 9 games in his career. 4 last year, did have 38 tackles, was a pretty big piece of this LSU defense, but he hasn't, again, been that consistent starter, that consistent presence in the LSU secondary. So can he take on that lion's share of the tackles, of the snaps, of the coverages, of the leadership in that secondary and perform at the level that people think he can? Picked 3rd-team All-SEC. I mean, that's high praise, especially for a guy that's not like a returning starter that started 10, 12, even 8 games. No, half of that 8, actually. But a lot of people like his skill set. They like his intangibles. They think he's going to be really good. So can Major Burns live up to his lofty preseason expectations? Those are the wild card players this year for LSU. If all 5 perform well, I mean, this team might be bound for a national championship because these are guys that are filling holes that last year's team didn't really have. If a couple of these guys step up, this could still be a national championship team. So if you're looking for 5 guys that could tell the tale of what this season will be for LSU, it's those 5 guys. Flip the page. Topic 3. All right, continuing on with a series that we started in our first episode. By the way, go check it out if you missed it. Just go to WAFB on YouTube and download our 9 News app as well. Transfers to Know Part 2. So we covered 5, I believe, in the first part. We've got a couple of more for you today. And these are guys that transferred in to LSU with the intention of playing this year, of competing, of having an impact on the team. So these are guys that we expect in some capacity to carve out a role for themselves. Remember, LSU had the number 2 class in the transfer portal this past cycle, only behind Colorado. That's because they got Travis Hunter. So here's some of the guys that were in that class that could really step up big. Start with Aaron Anderson, bit of a hometown kid, attended Edna Carr in New Orleans, spent his freshman season at Alabama, only played in 1 game, redshirted, wasn't seeing the field. So, hops in the portal, now he's at LSU to help transform this offense, to kind of take that passing game I was talking about to the next level. And if you've been on social media the past few days, the X app, Instagram, this guy's been flying. And a lot of people have been talking about him too. He's going to appear in the slot, he's 5'8", 190, and he could take screen passes to the house. That's what he did in the video I saw on Twitter. Now, Malik Neighbors can do that, but there's only one Malik Neighbors. You can't copy this guy and have 2 of them on the field at the same time because that's illegal based on the football rules because you can't have a guy wearing the same number on the field at the same time. But also, you just can't copy a human being, obviously. So what Aaron Anderson is kind of a lesser Malik Neighbors. That's not to say he can't be as good or better than Neighbors at some point, but right now where he is now as just a second-year college player, he's a little bit of a lesser Neighbors. I mean, that's not a knock on the kid because Neighbors is one of the top draft prospects for wide receivers. So it's not like, we're selling him short or anything like that. This guy's got talent, and he's going to flash that talent. He can move. He's a little jitterbug. He gets out in space, that's a problem. So you can really design some plays, some concepts for Anderson. So I'm excited about what he could do. One of the top receiver prospects a couple of cycles ago in the portal, or rather on the recruiting trail, and now in the portal, he was one of the top receivers that college teams could get and use for his services. All right, defensive side of the ball, we got a couple, and we got one more offensive guy too. How about Denver Harris, though? He's a guy that will probably be covering Anderson in practice, in fall camp here. Harris was a 5-star, huge recruit, just like Smith. Everybody wanted this guy out of high school. Ends up going to Texas A&M in their insane class that they brought in last cycle. Spent 1 year there, played a couple of games, and played a couple of games at high level too. He had 4 tackles against Alabama and a couple of pass deflections in a game against Mississippi State as well. So he's already seen the field a little bit at the collegiate level. Now the question is, can he crack the rotation and start this year for LSU? He's in there. It's a position battle going on right now. Deuce Chestnut, Zy Alexander, we talked about last episode. They're the projected starters for this LSU team, but Harris is right in the mix there. Apparently he's been doing very well in practice. Did get into a bit of a fight apparently the other day, but it seems like that's just water under the bridge. Nobody's really talking about that anymore. But I want to see if Harris can usurp that CB spot if Alexander or Chestnut struggle, because I talked about that maybe being a position battle going into the season. So Harris, with the pedigree he has, the playing experience he has, is a guy that could easily slot in at CB1, CB2. So remember that name, because if there's corner struggles, week 1, week 2, week 3, Harris might be getting rotated in there. So don't be alarmed if you see a Harris jersey on the field for LSU. He's a corner, very talented. Back to the offensive side of the ball, a name that most people don't know, but you should know, and you will know if there's problems in the offensive line for LSU this year. Mason Lunsford, extremely experienced guy, transfers in from Maryland. He started 24 games there, over 1,600 snaps as a Terp. He's not going to start at least week 1, but if there's an injury, if there's some shakeups that need to happen on that offensive line, Lunsford's going to be the first one to go in there because he's got experience starting at left guard, at center, even a little bit of tackle as well, mostly at the guard positions though. So last year, something I found interesting real quick was that LSU used 5 different offensive line combinations in the first 6 games, which means they weren't necessarily set on who they wanted to start. It seems like they are more so this year. But if someone's struggling and if someone gets injured, you can put Lunsford in. He's going to perform just fine. So that was an underrated, really good pickup in the portal. And we'll round out on the other side of the ball in the trenches with Jordan Jefferson. No relation to Justin Jefferson or the quarterback that LSU previously had. He plays defensive line, specifically D-tackle, and he comes from West Virginia. 6'4", 317, 4-star transfer, a lot of experience. 42 games under his belt, 17 starts, started all 12 last year for the Mountaineers, led the team in tackles for loss, and mostly played that nose tackle position. And this is big. Same reasons really as Lunsford. Not only can Jefferson produce, he's done so at the Power 5 level, as has Lunsford. But if Smith goes down with an injury, or he needs to kind of slowly matriculate his way back into the fold, Jefferson can go in and play well. He can stop a run. He can rush the passer. This is a guy that can solidify, I think, this defensive line for LSU. So if there's issues on the defensive line side of the ball, you really got to be 5 or 6 deep if you want to perform well and not have a week where you're putting walk-ons out there. Guys just aren't ready to play. Jefferson's ready to play. So he's going to be in the rotation, and especially if you've got something unfortunate that happens, he's going to slot in. So transfers to know: Aaron Anderson, Mason Lunsford, Denver Harris, Jordan Jefferson. Look out for them this fall for the Tigers. Finish out with some Saints talk. Going to the NFL because there was some big news today. You kind of heard rumblings about it over the weekend. Kareem Hunt, Anthony Barr, hosted by the Saints, NFL veteran guys. And today we learned that the Saints, reported by multiple people, are expected to sign Kareem Hunt and Anthony Barr. And this is big because those are 2 holes for this Saints team: running back and linebacker. Starting at that running back position, Eno Benjamin recently ruptured his Achilles. And as we talked about last episode, Alvin Kamara got a 3-game suspension for his off-the-field situation. So that means you've got Jamal Williams, you had Eno Benjamin, and you've got Kendre Miller at that running back spot. Now you don't have Benjamin, obviously, and he's a guy that hasn't played a ton, really proven himself, just about 100 carries and 400 yards. Not much, and that's over 3 seasons, too, with a couple of different teams. So he has played in the NFL a little bit, but doesn't really inspire confidence in you. Jamal Williams is a proven guy, but he's not an Alvin Kamara. He's not much of a receiver. He's not a home run hitting running back. And then Kendrick Miller's a rookie, so he hasn't even played a down of NFL football. Not even preseason yet. That's coming up later this week. So you need to bring in somebody that kind of knows what he's doing out there. Kareem Hunt certainly knows what he's doing. He's a good receiving threat out of the backfield, and he's a really good rushing threat as well. He had about 500 yards on the ground with the Browns last year. He was primarily Nick Chubb's backup, but also a handful of receptions as well. He can play the way that Kamara does, not to the same level, obviously, but he can fill in that role and do a good enough job for this Saints team to win football games. So I think Kareem Hunt is an excellent guy to sign because you need someone for those first 3 games that can be that dual threat kind of guy, if you will, at running back with Derek Carr. You don't have that right now, and it's really going to cost you football games. So why not? Hunt's the guy that's out to prove himself. You know, he's getting older. His body's deteriorating a little bit. He wants to come in and prove he can still do this job and do so well. So maybe he can get an extension with the Saints or just sign with a different team. So he's going to come in. He's going to be a short-term solution. You only need him for a few games while Kamara is out. And if you find lightning in a bottle with Miller or Williams, so be it. It's just a little bit of an investment. So why not sign Kareem Hunt? I think that's a really good person to bring in and just help you out for those first couple weeks so you don't start 0-3, you know? All right, defensive side of the ball, another question this offseason was linebacker. Because the Saints didn't draft a linebacker, they lose Caden Ellis to the Falcons, who played the second most snaps for this defense from the linebacker position last year. You've got Demario Davis, but who else? You got Pete Werner as well, but he's a little bit injury prone, right? He missed a couple of games midseason last year. In any case, you've got those 2 guys. Who's the third guy, though? A lot of people think it could be Zach Bond, but is it, though? 3rd-round pick in 2020, but hasn't played a whole lot. He played twice the amount of snaps 2 years ago that he did last year. So he's not proven. And you can't afford to be treating this like a science experiment. So why not bring in Anthony Barr, a guy that played for years in Minnesota and was a 4-time Pro Bowler? Played at Dallas last year, started 14 games. Didn't put up the same stats that he did in Minnesota, but he wasn't relied on as heavily at Dallas. And he was kind of just a rotational player and would fill in where he could fit in kind of thing. But he's still a guy that can come in and produce. So I think you need to bring Anthony Barr in. Ellis is gone. You need someone to fill that 3rd linebacker position. You're too young. You're too inexperienced. Barr's got both of those things. He's older, and he's got that experience, and he's played at a high level. So why not? 4 linebackers last year for the Saints played 1 snap. One's gone. Davis is back. Werner's back. Bond would be the other guy. You bring in Barr. If you got the money to do it, just do it. Then you got 4 linebackers. Werner gets hurt, bang. Barr slides in, and you still got Bond. And Davis is your alpha dog. He played in every game last year. You're hoping that is the case again this year, so you don't have even more problems. So overall, I think Kareem Hunt and Anthony Barr, guys, you definitely need to sign. Good on them for bringing them in for visits. Now they got to pass their physicals and some other things of that nature. So we'll keep you posted on when they actually sign, if they actually sign. We expect them to. Many people expect them to. And those would be really good signatures to get for the Saints that would really help next season, not only in the beginning, but all season long. Okay, let's close up with Q&A. And by the way, if you guys ever have questions, LSU, Southern, Southeastern Louisiana, local high school, Saints, drop them in the comment section. DM me on Twitter at John Eads, WAFB, or on Instagram, John Eads TV. We got 2 questions this week, both coming from the brother of a guy I know from college named Brad Klein. This is Adam Klein. And Adam, I hear you're a big LSU fan, so we appreciate these questions. Let's start with the first question. And that was SEC expansion. What do we think about SEC expansion? Haven't heard anything official, but there's been rumblings and really just inferences and inclinations about maybe some of these ACC teams coming to the SEC. And personally, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I'm not really sure that you need to add any teams. The SEC is getting 2 teams in the playoff every year like nobody's business. The conference is excellent. You're getting a ton of teams in the bowls every year. what do you need another team for? I mean, I guess if Clemson is looking for a destination or if Florida State is looking for a destination, you could think about it. But there is no reason to be bringing in the lower tier ACC teams, the Wake Forest, the Syracuse. I hate to say that one because that's where I went to school. Teams like that, they don't need to be in the SEC. It just means more in this conference. This is the elite conference. So if you're going to bring teams in, they got to be elite. And I think the only teams that would really fit that description are a Clemson, are a Florida State, maybe a North Carolina, maybe a Duke, maybe a Miami. And I'd only bring in a Duke or a North Carolina because they bring basketball to the fold as well. But why play with something if you don't need to? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. This system works. The SEC's got talent on both divisions. They got top-tier talent every year. I don't think there's really a need to bring new teams in. You know, the ACC is going to do what the ACC is going to do. If they implode, they implode. You don't need to help them out unless it's going to be a compelling reason for you to do that. So that's my 2 cents on it. Don't think you need to add any teams, but if you're going to add teams, just only add the elite teams that are going to add to this conference. Don't be a Rutgers. Don't be a Nebraska. Don't be a Maryland in the Big Ten. Don't come to the conference and just collect a paycheck. Do something with it. All right, second question from Adam was regarding J.K. Johnson and Denver Harris, who we already talked about a little bit. What's their outlook for the cornerback jobs? Well, Johnson, I saw on Twitter yesterday, he's on a boot and he's not practicing, so that might answer your question right there. We're not sure how serious that injury is or what exactly is going on with that, but it doesn't seem like Johnson, obviously with that injury, is going to be competing for a cornerback spot. So it's Zy Alexander and Deuce Chestnut, I believe, and Harris is right there. Like I said, if Harris performs well here in fall camp and just sits there ready to go in a rotational role, gets out there for a couple of snaps in the games and does well, yeah, I mean, he could certainly lock up that cornerback spot. But I don't think he's going to be your day one starter when we're in Orlando watching FSU play LSU. But he could earn that job into the season. I think he's just a little too evergreen. Alexander was an FCS All-American. Chestnut was a freshman All-American. They've got more experience. I think you lean on those two first. Kelly even said it today. You know, I'm seeing what you guys are seeing. Chestnut's got experience. Alexander's got experience. Harris does too, not to the extent that those two have. So I think Harris could be the starter at some point. Not predicting it day one, though. He's certainly in there. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in to episode 2 of Game Time. Another electric episode. Find us on YouTube. Just look up WAFB. Download our 9 News app. Follow me on the socials. Again, Twitter or X, at John Eads WAFB. Yeah, that's right. And then Instagram is John Eads TV. We'll catch you on Thursday for another edition of Game Time with John Eads.